I got into the anime game kind of late. I didn't grow up watching Pokemon or Dragon Ball Z, and Evangelion was just another one of those titles I missed out on. Fun fact, Eva and I are nearly the same age, down to the day. One of the episodes came out the day I was born, so we could have been classmates in a sense. When I first started watching anime, I was taking recommendations, and someone had said that I wouldn't like Evangelion, so I just never bothered to watch it. There was a lot of other shows to watch, video games to play, and miniatures to paint. But then, in 2022, Eva was brought up to me again, and I decided to give the first episode a shot. A motivation to get through difficult days. I rationed the episodes as best I could stand, watching one each day and excitedly messaging my friends about my thoughts. About my theories. There's a lot in the original 26 episodes of Evangelion that is undefined. Shady government agencies don't explain all of their plans. Misinterpreting a bit of dialogue or thinking on a particular moment can alter the story. Different people will take away different things from that series. As I watched the events of the series unfold, this excitement felt familiar. It felt like when I had played Bloodborne for the first time. Now, I'm hardly what I would call a gamer. The first game I had ever beaten was Hamtaro Ham Heartbreak. Yes, the sequel, not the original. For whatever reason, I had found that one either too difficult or not as interesting. And going into college, that remained the only game I had beaten. I had played Zoo Tycoon and Animal Crossing Wild World, but neither of those are particularly beatable games. Bloodborne was a big change. I'd never really learned how to lock onto enemies, how to plan leveling up, or figure out what weapon builds would be viable. Bloodborne was hard. Every mistake I made, the enemies seemed to capitalize on. I could pump my hunter's legs full of beast blood until my blood vials were completely gone, and I still couldn't get past that first bonfire. As a conservative estimate, I would say the first area took me at least 8 hours to beat. Days. The same enemy, the same cadence, until I learned the exact timing of a hunter's axe swing. I kept going, heart pounding, and hands shaking. I still remember how much my hands hurt from hours of holding the controller, the impressions of the side of the analog stick on my thumbs. I was genuinely afraid, but not of the monsters and jump scares. I was afraid I didn't have the skills to get past this bonfire ever. My cousins, my siblings, my friends, they had always been the one holding the controllers before, and now that I was in the chair, now that I was piloting, I didn't think I had what it takes to actually beat the first level of the game. And what scared me was not knowing. I had to know who was lighting the candles on the statues, how the beast plague began, why the moon didn't look right, what had made that horrible scream when you're climbing the ladder in Central Yarnum. I had to know why the people in the houses laughed at an outsider in their city on the night of a hunt. What did they know that I didn't? I had so many questions, and the thought they might not be answered kept me from my college assignments as I shrugged them off over and over again to sit on a cluttered couch wrapped in a duvet for hours on end, begging my fingers to do what I needed them to do to get past the bonfire. After the 4th day and what felt like the 50th hour, though in reality I'm sure the total wasn't quite so high, I did it. I got past the bonfire. I killed the rabid dogs and unlocked the gate by Gilbert's window. I would never have to go through the bonfire again, and the world of Bloodborne was open to me. The answers to my questions were out there. Bloodborne and Neon Genesis Evangelion both touch on humans interacting with the divine. Whether it's the scions of the Healing Church and their reverence for the amygdala, Project Adam hidden beneath Nerve headquarters, or the scholars of Bergenworth seeking to be granted eyes on the inside, Bloodborne lets its story unfold in archaic dialogue, convoluted item descriptions, and the densely detailed environments the player traverses through. Evangelion is so confident in the story it has to tell that everything is revealed down to the final frame in its opening sequence, yet every episode left me guessing. The Gundams can bleed? The Gundams have eyes? Seek pale blood to transcend the hunt. There is something deeply wrong with Eva and Bloodborne, something uncomfortable. It's natural to expect that in a horror game. If there aren't jump scares or moments where you're afraid, it's not worth calling horror. I've often watched horror films and come away from them thoroughly disappointed because I wasn't scared, but to me they're also supposed to be more than that. I want a story. I want something to latch onto. As you progress through the game, the feeling that something deeply wrong happened never dissipates. With Evangelion, in its second episode, the one I share a birthday with, we learn that the Gundams bleed. It's surprising, even to me who had not watched much in the way of mecha anime at all. I knew robots didn't bleed. This one was bleeding, and it was fighting an angel, no less. Both Bloodborne and Evangelion are translated works, and I'm sure there are whole teams of people working to ensure that the original script is localized as true to the original intent as possible. I love the choice to call the Titans of Evangelion angels. It's a choice full of questions. Humans, overreaching into the territory of gods, would of course have to fight angels. Bloodborne names its creatures more cryptically, but you still have Ludwig the Holy Blade, Vicar Amelia, Father Gascoigne. The religious connotations are thick frosting between the cake layers of questions. There is something wrong here, and the church is not going to help you. There is something wrong here, and the church may have been the one to do it. There is something wrong here, and it was intentional. It was ordained. It was godly for it to be this way. It was the first time my choices in a video game had a lasting impact. I remember how I had found a man eating a corpse on the roof of a windmill in the woods. I knew he was eating a corpse. I could see it. But Bloodborne was such a lonely place. When he spoke to me in a friendly manner, there was something in me that immediately looked past the corpse and invited him to stay in the church. I had no frame of reference. I had never killed anyone in Ham Ham Heartbreak. The man left blood pooling on the floor of the healing church, and I ended up having to kill him with my own axe lest he slay again. I cannot accurately communicate to you the devastating responsibility I felt at these depths. I had seen him eating that corpse. I knew what he was capable of. I knew something was off, but something had been off the whole game. I was slaughtering vicars, gaining insight, stabbing myself with yet more beast blood so I could fend off giants and massive crows and coils of snakes. I made a mistake, and it hurt. Evangelion is all about mistakes that hurt. The characters make them over and over. I don't think it's any kind of stretch to say that I turn to media as a means of avoidance. A lot of people in the hobby space use our small plastic toys to fight off depression and anxiety. Life for me has gotten a bit better, but there are still plenty of days where painting at my desk is the only time I feel calm. I've never been a confident person. I remember when I got stuck on a particular boss, the one reborn, all I wanted to do was hand the controller to someone else. I just didn't believe I'd be able to do it. Death and death and death again. Death until triumph. And triumph did come. I did beat Bloodborne, and I came away from it with the first modicum of confidence I had felt in years. I still have a photo of myself tucked inside the game case with the date I beat it written down on it. It was that important of a moment to remember, and I get to see that every time I open the game. I triumphed because I had to know. Evangelion's questions built and built the more the show went on. I wanted to know what happened to Rey. I wanted to know why there was a fetus in a suitcase. I was curious about everything. And I remember what a wonderful shock it was when you find out that the mecha suits are actually a restraint system for the creatures. Bloodborne does not ever tell you who lights the candles in Central Yharnam. Bloodborne does not tell you who Murgo is. Evangelion's original 26 episodes do little more than hint at the answers to their many multitudes of questions. When I finished Evangelion, the first thing people wanted to do was send me explanations of it. There are tons of videos about the timeline of the impacts, the true story, how all the various iterations beyond the original broadcast factor in and what they mean. There are analyses of every bit of dialogue, every character, every flash of text in the opening sequence. It's all been broken down. This has happened with Bloodborne as well. The various bits and pieces of narrative have coalesced within its fandom so that a sort of true canon version of the events of the game have arisen. People keep asking me if I understood Ava. I've been sent videos explaining Ava to me. The same happened with Bloodborne. I don't think explaining the text is the same as analyzing it. I've done my best not to summarize any particular events of either franchise, and not to shield from spoilers. Because how the media made me feel and what it has to say will always be more important to me than what the truest answer to every question I had while experiencing them is. Evangelion showed me one of the ugliest portraits of depression I'd ever seen, and I think had I watched that when I was a teenager, I would have found Shinji annoying. He contradicts himself at every turn, he has no confidence in himself, and there are multiple shots of him just lying down listening to music. That back and forth, making a commitment and then running from it over and over, it's something I've done myself time and again. It's not something dramatic or interesting to put into a narrative, it's deeply unpleasant. Most of the characters in Evangelion are deeply unpleasant. Most of the characters in Bloodborne are deeply unpleasant. I remember when I first came across Patches the Spider, I was just happy to have a character that wanted to be friends, who didn't want to kill me. I was no veteran Souls player, I didn't know any better, and just like before with the corpse-eating man, I was happy enough to trust him. I maintained that Patches was the only character who was a friend throughout my full first playthrough, because I happened not to find him on the fields of Mensis, where he lays a trap to kill you. I just kind of missed that part. My canon of that was different from other people's, and later I found that Patches is one of the most infamous backstabbers across the Soulsborne series. Were I truly of that world, I would have been as fooled as any hapless traveler. There is no one in Bloodborne who will be kind to you without an ulterior motive or an unfortunate end. You kill everyone you help. You cannot prevent the deaths of the little girl with her lost mother. What happens to the Gascoigne and Vicar Amelia was always going to happen, even if you had not come across them. Explaining that Gilbert's corruption is inevitable isn't the same as coming back for advice and finding his window broken open and a werewolf roaming the street. His cough is gone, and he has claws now, and he will kill you. I remember I couldn't stand to kill him. I closed the gate that I had worked so hard to open. Hours of struggling past that first bonfire. Death after death after death. I'd killed dozens, if not hundreds, of the same enemy type, same character model. Another friend who I couldn't keep, who I had failed to save. There are so many times when playing this game that I wanted to set down the controller because I did not like what the world was becoming. I was upset, genuinely. I had not played a game like this before. Animal Crossing Rossetti had nothing on this great, incalculable tragedy. All for the sake of knowledge, for reaching into the territory of gods. It is interesting to me that the lessons that Ava and Bloodborne seem to warn of, that the pursuit of an answer to every question leads to great calamities, is so rarely addressed when the media is looked at. People will mine for data in video games, pull from concept art and scrap designs, comb through past projects for answers. They will, looking at the creation, extend their hands to the realms of the creators, digging through the cosmic archives for new meaning. All this to say, tread cautiously, friends. Your answer might have some unexpected consequences. As for me, I've gotten over most of my hesitations. I'm no better at video games now than when I started, but I can beat the first level of Bloodborne in a single try. Sometimes, you just have to pick up the controller and get in the robot. Have a happy new year, and a good night. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please drop a like, subscribe if you haven't, and if you could leave a comment letting me know whether you liked this format or not, that would be really great. I'm not sure how video essays are going to do on this channel, but I really wanted to give making one a go. I'd like to shout out my top tier patrons, Paul, No, and Annie. You guys are the best. If you'd like to join them, I do have a Patreon. Follow me on Instagram, join us on Discord, you know, all that social media stuff. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.